Hello and welcome to Swimmed, education for coaches, athletes, and parents.
The only podcast dedicated to club swimming.
Here we examine swimming and sports from three perspectives: the coaches, the athletes, and the parents.
Through our candid and unscripted discussions, we share our views along with advice and applications that can help coaches improve their coaching, athletes increase their performances, and parents boost their support.
So welcome to Swim. Let's dive in. All right, so today we have Mike Radford with us, which is great. This last weekend, all of us were up in Athens, right? And we had an exciting weekend. Michael, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was a weekend for the ages, Matt. Thank you for Matthew. Thank you for asking, Matthew. Well, it started on Friday when my 4.5-year-old fell off the playground and broke her arm. And so then we're in the hospital the next morning.
I'm out. It wasn't a small break.
No, she definitely got both bones in her forearm and snapped them pretty good. It was a nice fall.
Your ulna and your radius are snapped. You send us like in a link, you send us like a picture of the x-ray, and it's just like
it was not straight.
Yeah, at least they were parallel through the here and here, maybe not in the middle.
Yeah, it wasn't like skull and crossbones like
exactly.
Yeah,
it could have been worse. But so then we're at the hospital, getting it reduced, getting reduction or whatever at the time that I'm supposed to be recording a podcast with you guys.
Right.
And then go straight from there and coach a swim meet all day. And then Genius Mike here decided we've been doing this thing called mini meets where we get our like 10 and unders to go and do you get candy and dress up and have music and do a really fun meet, and it's fast and you're in and out in 2 hours. It's a great thing. It's kind of like that block party USA Swimming concept.
Yeah.
But scheduling it after a 4-hour session that preceded it, and all my staff is tired and grumpy, and I'm like, hey, come and hang out with 80 10 and unders. Let's see how you guys do.
What could go wrong? Because they're so easy to contain.
Wrong. Yeah. So that was my weekend, and then coaching the next morning. But at least I got to see y'all's smiling faces. That certainly.
Yeah. It's always good to be in Athens. It's always good to be in Athens.
I hadn't been there in a long time, so it was really good to be back and see you all. It's like family after a while that you especially because I'm in South Carolina swimming now. So like every time I get to go back on deck in Georgia, I'm in such like my kids are always like, you're so much smilier when you're around Georgia coaches. And I'm like, well,
that's because you're showing off. You're trying to show all the Georgia people it's so much better in South Carolina.
No. That is not what is happening.
No. There's no perfect place. No, it was interesting because I got to go up obviously for the interview, but then I took my daughter with me, and she hasn't been up there since she was like 6. And the last time we were up there for a Georgia football game. So she got to see that part of campus, literally just like a tailgate in the stadium. So we got to walk all of the East Campus, and the next day we went to North Campus in downtown Athens and went shopping. And luckily my daughter is big into, I wonder how much that is. It's a little expensive. I'm not going to get that. Thank you. So she got like a Georgia hat and some other stuff. And then we went to a volleyball game on Sunday, which is great. They had Hawaiian Day, and I'll have to put the picture up at some point here. But they gave out nice Georgia Hawaiian shirts, to which my one friend last night, who's a Florida fan, we are friends, he said, that's great. That's a beautiful shirt, except for the Georgia and the red and black. And I was like, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, but it was a good giveaway, so it's always good to be up there.
Florida fans don't have a lot to be happy about right now, maybe other than the sport of swimming. So they're going to take their digs where they can get them because they're Gators.
Yes.
It's just a tough time.
It is a tough time. We've lived through it as Georgia fans.
We did.
It'll come back around for all of us.
Yeah. Mine did on Saturday. I mean, Mizzou is always our first, and then Georgia's our second. And that Alabama game, I don't even want to talk about. that hurt a lot.
Georgia's our first. Me and Mike will now continue the conversation, and we'll cut up Missouri.
Well, and I mean, like, it was a great weekend too because, first of all, did you guys know that Kirby was on deck?
I heard that. Someone told me Kirby Smart was walking around the pool deck. And I'm like,
yes. So again, like my daughter Evie, she's a huge Georgia fan, and so and she plays football, and so she was up in the stands, and he walked out of the office with Stephanie, and I guess he was talking to the men's team. He was going to give a talk with them, and he walked out, and they walked by, and I waved, and Evie was up in the bleachers, and she's like, stop him right now. I am coming. I see him. Like no one else, like only a few coaches were on deck at that point. And like he was walking to go, I don't remember where he was going, but he had Stephanie with him and Evie like immediately saw it and she was like, grab him. And I'm like, you do not stop Kirby Smart and be like, hey, my 12-year-old wants to take a picture with you.
No,
And so
No.
anyway, but yeah, like only a few people realized it because he didn't have a hat on or like anything. He just was down on deck and then he like came back out for 2 seconds after he talked to the boys. But I mean, he barely was like, you had to like know it was him. And there was a lot of coaches the second time that like I was standing there and he walked by and they were like, is that who I was that?
yeah,
And I
that
was like,
was
yes,
that was
that
him.
was
Yeah, I didn't realize if I knew he was showing him, I would have stayed on deck a little bit longer because we were down there for part of the men's practice. I guess we just missed that. I don't know.
yeah.
Anyways, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Coach Ben, who we saw on the pool deck. He said that he gave us kudos for our podcast. He said he really likes it because when he listens to podcasts, there's nothing directly for club swimming. And he said it's directly applicable to what he's doing. Like, and his example was when he's like, whenever you guys have your pet peeves or whatever, it's like, why are you getting out of the water during a main set? Like he said, like his swimmers will just be like really coy, like, hey, can I go to and they just point to the bathroom. I was like, I know where the bathroom is. You know it's a main set. What are you doing?
Giving you the
Yeah.
sign language, like,
Yeah,
come
it's
on,
just
coach.
like I got to go now. Like I should have planned better. They don't really ever say I should have planned better. But
No.
and he goes, it's really funny because I'll say, all right, this is before the main set. Go to the bathroom if you have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Nobody goes. And then
Yeah.
what
But
we
when
have
it starts
there.
getting hard is when all of a sudden
Exactly.
we have to go to the bathroom
Magically, they really gotta go pee.
right
Yes.
before round 3 out of 4. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Everybody can do the fourth round, especially if you're out the third round.
Yeah.
A lot easier. A lot easier.
Yeah.
And then I want to embarrass Coach Mike here for a second. So the story is that we have some mutual friends, the Pattersons, and I had gone to church on Sunday, and I met up with them because they're just good friends. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, we're here, and we're here to interview Coach Mike." She's like, "Coach Mike, Mike Radford. Oh, I love him. Like I love him." And she told me this great story that one of her sons is not the most accomplished swimmer. She was a swimmer growing up, but he was not the most accomplished swimmer. And so he decided that he didn't want to swim summer league with you. And you wrote an email basically saying, hey, I see that so and so is not swimming. She's like, yeah, he's not going to swim. And you said, quote, something along the lines of, you tell him that I want him on our team, that he's a valuable part of it. We need his leadership, and I expect him on deck. And
Oh,
like that. And she showed it to him, and it was like, he wants me on deck. I'm there. And
yeah.
she's like, she just glows. Then she said, I need to contact him. And by the time I made it on deck on Sunday morning, she had already contacted you.
She had
So,
already sent me the text. Yeah.
yes, because she's like, I love Coach Mike. So that's one reason why we're interviewing you is because we have a lot of respect for you and what you do as far as the way that you lead as an age group coach. And you're the head age group coach at ABSC. You have a lot of responsibility there. That's kind of like what you do. I know in the last couple of years, you guys have moved pools. You now are at two different pools. You have an office. All that stuff's going on. I stayed with Coach Harvey in his back house, and he said, I said, how's everything going? He goes, we are, and this is where I want to start the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, ABSC is in a great spot, like one of the best spots they've ever been in because of some decisions that they've made over the last couple of years, especially the last 2 years, and just how groups have been joined and what you guys are doing. So I'm going to start there. So what have you been doing at ABSC? Like, what has made it so great these last couple of years in particular? I mean, it's always great, but in particularly these last couple of years.
Well, one of the things is we're now the proud owners of a micro aquatic center.
There you
So
go.
you can find us operating a small pool in Oconee County, Georgia now called Summerhill Recreation Club.
Right.
And that has been incredible and has also, we knew it was going to be hard. Like, did not go into this. Maybe everyone else didn't go into this naive. Maybe I was a little naive, but we are learning firsthand the challenges of operating an aquatic center. I actually got a text this morning that the boiler heating the outdoor pool went out last night. And that's the
Solid.
second time in the last month, so
Yeah.
operating pools, man, this is
But
we
you live
got
in the
signed up
South.
for this.
You don't need a heater, right? You live in the
Says
South.
everyone.
Yeah, yeah, you would think. And the pool is, it's cold, and so it's down because it wasn't heated last night, so it's like 79 or 78 right now.
Right.
And everybody's like, "Oh, that's fine. That's warm, it's a warm summer day."
Until you
Not
put a
when you
10-year-old
got
in
Yeah, not when
it.
you got eight and unders with 0% body fat and there's a slight breeze blowing because we don't have the tent up yet on the outdoor pool. Yeah, it's a little brisk, but all joking aside, I mean that's been pretty awesome for us. We actually have three pools because we still have the other pool where we were running operations in Oconee before this. So we have the Ramsey Center at Georgia. That's where most of our like senior and what we call our dogs group, our top age groups run out of there. Matt, you know this, you were an
Yes.
ABSC coach. But we have a few more groups than when you left, I'll say that. But we have that, yeah, those three pools. And so we've grown, I mean, in the last I'd say pre-COVID, we probably got up into like the upper 270s, 280s in terms of number of total age group swimmers, 6 to 18. And then we struggled through COVID a little bit, but that kind of prompted us to get a new location. And then
Right.
ever since then, we've bounced back. And I mean, we're sitting at probably about 355, 360 swimmers right now. And that doesn't include, the swim school that we started in 2021. That doesn't include our master's program, which has like 40 masters in it, 50, 45 masters right now. Awesome master's coach. I don't know if y'all know who Laura Templin is. Do y'all know her?
Mm-mm.
She's
No.
our master's coach. She swam for Auburn. At the time she was Laura Swander, and her mom is Pam Swander,
Yeah,
who
I know Pam.
on staff at South Carolina for a little bit, and her
Yeah.
brother is Kevin Swander. So big swim family.
Yeah.
She
Sounds like
Laura was like a state champion in Indiana growing up and all this kind of stuff. But so she's sort of the ringleader of our masters. And so now I can look at people when they're interested in the team, and I'm like, if you're 6 months old, we got a place for you to swim in our swim school with the parent class. And we have a guy that's 76 that's like competing in the Golden Olympics and doing his whole
wow.
thing. I didn't know the Golden Olympics existed, but he's doing.
Yeah.
And so we got a little bit of everything in between right now, which is great.
Wow. So how are you managing that compared to, I mean, like I remember the first time that I met you and you were like so young and just like, and it's like Harvey had thrown you into the age group stuff and you were like trying to absorb and learn everything. And then like hearing where this is all at now, how are you dealing with all of these different facets and how do you like as a staff make sure that you're all not number one burning out because that's always a big question we get from coaches, right? Is like when you grow to a team of this size with this many groups and this many entities, how do you separate it so everybody's getting their personal time that they need, number one, but then number two, how are you making sure as a staff that it's successful?
Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, a lot of the changes we've made with the structures of our program and all that kind of stuff, and even getting a pool would have happened a long time ago. I think it's God's providence that I'm on staff with Harvey and Jonathan because they are very opposite personality of me. I'm definitely the gas pedal, like let's do the next thing, let's go, go, go.
Right.
And they're very practical. And I don't know, Mike, I don't know if the timing's right yet. Maybe we should pull back a little bit and take our
Yeah.
time to get there. And so we balance each other out really well. I like to think that I pull them along, and I like to think that they slow me down. But and I think that's why I'm not burnt. My kids are going crazy in the other room. Sorry. I think
Fine.
that's
We can't
why
hear them.
I'm not burning out or losing steam or things like that because they are effectively the guardrails. They're the ones that tell me you have to take a night off each week and go spend time
Good.
with your family. And if you don't, we're going to have a problem. Like you need to go spend time with your family one night each week and not be on the deck. And they're the ones that are when I have this new idea to start this new group or this new program, they make me fight for it for a couple of years before I get it. And if I do, I have to show them like why it will make sense financially and why it will make sense for our staff and all those things. So it's that practicality and that pace. And it's hard for me because I always thought swimming would, I've coached summer league, I've coached high school swim. I've been able to turn programs around really quickly and get them from a summer league team from 60 kids to 160 kids, in 4 years and stuff like that, and go from last place to first place. And I thought club swimming would be the same way.
Right.
And it is definitely not, it is much slower burn, which is
Yeah.
hard for me. But
Why do
it's
you
also,
think that is? Why do you think that there's a difference between those entities?
I guess it's the nature of them. Summer league, you can find some athletic kids and teach them how to do streamlines and dives and flip turns and give them some sprint work, and then they're going 23s in the 50 free after, a few weeks of training type deal versus club swimming side of things. You've got to give them a base, a foundation. You've got to teach them things that are going to last into the future and try to keep them over time. And so I think that's the big challenge. It's a 6 or 8 week season or a high school season of 3 months versus you're trying to keep these guys in the program indefinitely, and you get them as a 10-year-old and you've got to try to get them through your program as an 18-year-old. And there's just so much required of them, so much big commitment. And so it comes back to retention and how do we keep these kids in the program, year over year. It's a lot easier to sell a summer, like Kate Patterson, for example. Her kids were not swimmers, but I sent that email to get the kid back on the team, right? And help us out in that way. It's a lot easier to say, hey, come do this summer league program for 6 weeks.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
if you hate it, or it's too much or whatever, it's over in 6 weeks versus come be a part of this indefinite thing forever for the rest of your lives. I will always be there. You'll be getting emails in your inbox on Monday morning from Coach Mike giving you the week.
Yeah.
Even when you quit, we're keeping you on our email list. You will
Yes.
never get rid of us.
And you'll
Yeah.
unsubscribe and I'll resubscribe you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are part forever.
Yeah.
You,
I really like how you said the difference, is because with high school and summer league, it is like 6 weeks long and then they're done and they can like move on with their lives. And then with club swimming, we deal with swimmers that, and again, I know that you're at that point in your coaching career now, and Matt and I speak on this all the time that like we have kids from when they were 6 years old that they stay with us until they graduate high school. And we watch these like ebb and flows of their life that, they might be great for 2 years and then they just hit a plateau and we have to work them through a plateau that they can't get out of. And, or the ones that like, I've got a few right now that are going through this that all of a sudden their senior year, they're like, you know what, maybe I do want to swim in college. And you're like, and, and just all of those things that I think as a club coach, it's like a marathon instead of a sprint where you can like put your energy into 6 weeks and be like, yes, this is so much fun. This is amazing. And then like club swimming, you're like, this is survival. We need to like slow down. We need to, the technique stuff and everything like that. And I find that especially now I feel like post COVID, and Matt and I have talked about this on other podcasts, that families and kids have changed so much since COVID, and their like reality of what's important, it has changed immensely. And, I have dealt with, and I can say this actually, I've said this to Matt before, like, I was used to the team before this of being like forced to do like 4 2-a-days in the morning, like 4 days a week for high school kids in a row. And that was like the standard. And then we came out of COVID and I was talking to Ian, the head coach of Dynamo, and he's like, Jen, we only do 2 mornings a week. Like kids can't do that anymore. They're taking all these college courses. They're doing all of this stuff. Like families don't function that way. And so it's funny that you say that because I do feel like we've all, since COVID, all of us teams have shifted so much in different directions to try and figure out how it fits better for families and our staffs. And I've seen, especially like, I want to compliment you all that like, I've been around ABSC at like away meets, right? But not like in Athens for a while. And being back on the pool deck with all of you, there was a change. There was a difference in like the kids, the happiness of the kids. And like what I used to see is like Coach Mike with just the younger kids that were like super excited. Now the whole team is bought into it and they're all like excited, and it's just a different feel from what used to be. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And, how did you do it on that aspect of, like I said, taking the like Coach Mike energy that you had before and now it's like spread everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great staff. We've hired well the last few years, and so that has gone a long way in terms of spreading. It's club coaching in a nut. This is another reason why club coaching is so much harder than summer league. Summer league, I can basically do it myself.
Yeah.
I can hire some high school kids to help me, but I can basically do it myself. Club coaching, I cannot do it myself. I have to delegate and share responsibility and train staff and all these things. And it's a credit to Jonathan and Harvey. I mean, they've changed philosophy a good bit the last few years and allowed us the room to do shorter practices and less time per week. So it's more flexible and available to people. But I think the whole program has emphasized fun the last few years. Even last night we had a team dinner. So usually after a long meet weekend, we go to this cool place that's in Oconee now called Wire Park, and they've got like restaurants and ice cream shop and green space where the kids can kick a soccer ball around and all that. And so we go there and we do our team dinner, and we have our swimmers of the top dog swimmers of the month, and they get a little swim cap with a dog bone on it, and they get a $5 gift card to the ice cream shop right there. And we pull them up in front of everybody and recognize them. And that's stuff we do. We've done team dinners and stuff, but it's evolved over the years where we're actually recognizing people in front of their peers and emphasizing like having just fun together as a group outside. We used to go to Jason's Deli. Do you remember? And Cece's Pizza, and we would just cram into these tiny restaurants, and we'd
Yeah.
have little kids running around everywhere, and it didn't work.
Well, it's
Now we
also like those are in like big parking lots. Like Jason's Deli is surrounded by a parking lot in a
yeah,
strip mall.
yeah, it wasn't very safe.
Go kick the soccer ball. Just don't go in the road.
Yeah, kick the soccer ball and knock over the salad bar at Jason's Deli. Send bacon bits flying across the restaurant. But we've definitely evolved. So I think it's just that, we are so different than when you were on staff back in the day, man. We do like multiple monthly staff meetings now. Like we used to never do
Well, there's a
stuff like that.
staff. There's a staff meeting.
There's 2 monthly staff meetings.
It used to be you're on deck and Harvey would come around or I'd go around or whatever. It's like, hey, by the way, this is what we're doing. Okay.
For sure.
Thought I'd let you know.
I still remember from when I was first there, I mean, it's come a long way. But yeah, it's that staff connectedness of what is our goal. And we've been talking a lot about retention the last few years and what are the changes we can make as a program structurally, but also the changes we can make in terms of like the product we're delivering so that this is fun for the kids. For example, at the meet this past weekend, this is so dumb, but they loved it. Did y'all see that skeleton spider we had?
Yes.
Yeah,
I was going to bring it up.
Coach Mo's head.
Yes, it was on top of Coach Mo's head. And if kids got a best time in the swim meet, they got to go find Coach Mo and take a picture with the skeleton spider for Halloween. And then they got candy on the way out the door. You know what I mean? It's just it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel and do anything crazy. It's just remember this is supposed to be fun and not a grind, and let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge part of it.
Yeah, I love it.
You talked about a change in philosophy as far as like shorter practices and structure. What's been the biggest change of philosophy for ABSC?
I think we were like a lot of other programs in the 90s and early 2000s. Remember, ABSC's been around since the 1940s, technically, as Athens Swim Club. But
wow,
yeah. But I think we were a lot of other programs where it was like, kind of like Jen was mentioning a minute ago. This is the standard. These are the number of practices you need to attend each week, and if you can't do it, then you're out of the program. And so you start with 100 kids and you whittle them down. And by the time they're in the senior group, you've got, 15 dedicated kids left that can make all the practices and want to swim in college. And we look nothing like that now. I mean, we have 3 senior groups now. We have a senior 1 group, which is our top national kids. We have a senior 2 group, which is sort of the in-between where they maybe are making high school state and maybe a few senior state cuts, but aren't quite making, anything sectionals or anything like that yet, but want to. And then my favorite group that we've added is a senior flex group. And that group is for high school age kids who it's sort of a catch-all in that you have some kids in there who might make high school state and swim some pretty fast times. Maybe they swam for ABSC growing up and now they're a basketball player or whatever. And so they just want to swim a couple times a week. And then you have kids in there that is the athletic kid that's never swam before that you have to teach them the basics. And so you just throw them in and you start coaching them up and they get to where they can be a competitive member of their summer league and high school team. And so Matt, when you were here with ABSC, I think we had a group called the Underdogs, which was basically swim lessons. We had the pups, which was our, 10 and unders. We had the dogs, which was
Right.
11 to 14, and seniors. So I think we had 4 groups
Yes.
total in the whole program. And my secret mission since I've been here in 2011, 2012 has been let's add a group every couple of years. And we've been doing it. So now we have 3 10 and under groups, 3 11 to 14 groups, and 3 senior groups.
Wow.
And that doesn't include our homeschool program. But with all those 3, there's like an intro group, intro slash catch-up group. There's your intermediate group, and then there's your like highest commitment group. And that's been the big thing that has led to all of our growth. I would say that, and adding facilities and lane space,
Mhm.
because now any kid who wants to swim that has any sort of basic level of swimming background, done a month of summer league or whatever, can show up and we have a place to put them. And it doesn't matter if they're 8 years old or 15 years old, we can accept them on the team. And, one, just to air a pet peeve of my own, I know y'all had that pet peeves episode.
Yes.
Sometimes when I tell people about those flex groups, we have a middle school flex and a senior flex now, right? Sometimes when I tell people about those flex groups, the response is, "Oh, that's smart as a swim club. Those are moneymaker groups."
Mm.
And that's not wrong. I mean, they do help us financially for sure. We don't want to turn kids away that want to come and be a part of the program and help us that way. But that's not why they were created. They were created out of my pain and frustration, and our pain and frustration of this kid's been on the team for 6 years, and because she can't make 6 practices a week, she's going to quit. I
Right.
don't want to lose this kid. This
Yeah.
kid needs to stay in our program, and I'm pissed that we're losing her. You
Yeah.
know, I have specific examples in my mind of kids that if they had swam a decade ago, that if they swam for ABSC now, they never would have quit swimming because we
Yeah.
have something to offer them. And so like it's not just a pad the pockets. It's like this is a meeting a need in the community. And we're also the only team in our immediate community. The closest teams from us are like 30 minutes. And so if we don't have a wide offering of programming, we're denying kids the opportunity to swim. And that
Yeah.
I feel bad about that too, especially somebody who's out there until last year was in the summer league scene, and stoking it at the grassroots and trying to get involvement in summer league. And I still coach a high school team now. And so being out there in the community and having kids who wanted to swim, if we had to turn them away, that was pretty frustrating to me.
Yeah. And I can definitely say I obviously did the same thing after coaching on programs that I have. I was the same way, that I was like, I will never, because much like, Southern Tide exists because genuinely my first call when this decision had to be made was Harvey. And, and he was the one that was like, Jed, don't even think about it, do it. Like you can control it, you can make it what you want it to be. And so, but that was one of my pet peeves too, starting out, was like, I had been a part of so many programs where those kids, even younger kids that were multi-sport athletes, were being told that they weren't important or weren't valued unless they made certain number of practices, or that like they weren't going to be on relays because
Yeah.
they were doing other sports, or they weren't in that, all of these practices and stuff. And like, Matt knows we have this private conversation. Evie's not in the house right now, so I can say this, that like my daughter is the prime example of like why, because she plays all of these sports. And how many times that like I'll say to older kids that I'm like, if you have these goals, like you still have to show up at practice every once in a while. And then like Evie's still 12, so she's at that unfortunate age where she can go to a meet after not swimming for 2 weeks because she's been playing soccer and hit a state cut. And it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But I tell parents all the time that I'm like, I am you. I am that parent. I created this because my own daughter is that kid. I was that kid. I ran track and cross country and did basketball every once in a while, which I know Matt's gonna laugh because I'm 5'3", but I did when I was little.
A
I'm
solid
sure you were a menace on the court.
I was speedy, just so you know. I was great at layup. But
There's a
anyway,
lot of big bodies moving around you.
I know I could just weave in and out of them. That was the thing. I was faster, so it worked. But I did the same thing, that I was like, we came out of COVID and I watched, so many of these families. Number one, I felt like I was so proud because I watched families who at one time were the ones who were like, my kid needs more. They need more practices. They need more this. And it was like COVID just pressed the reset button on everyone of like, what they valued as families. They realized how much time they were missing with their kids and how fast it goes. And then I think it allowed all of us clubs to be like, wait a minute, like this is our opportunity too to take this and reset and restructure so those kids that still want to swim, we give them that avenue that they are valued just as much as that kid that is making, nationals or has the D1 scholarship, that they get, the same attention when they're there, and we don't make them feel like they're less just because they're not the fully committed ones. So, I love that because I do feel like all of the great programs are progressing towards that. But I agree with you on the pet peeve. Like nothing drives me more crazy when I do hear other programs say that those are their money makers and they're just doing it for the money aspect. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is you're giving those kids that extra opportunity. And I think the worst thing is that I've seen on the other side of that is programs taking that idea and using it as a moneymaker and then still treating those kids the exact same, like they're just an afterthought. That they're like, oh no, this group is for you. And then they're like, we're going to put a random coach on there every day. So it's a different coach, whoever is like the leftovers. And, we just don't really involve you. That's not what the point of this should be. It should be that they all feel like they've got a place to go. So, congratulations to you all on that, because I do think that it's made a huge difference in, just the overall environment that you guys have created there. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll say this real quick just to kind of hit this point again. We have a girl in the program right now, one of our fastest girls. Her name is Jimena Young. She's a really good butterflyer, and she's a senior. She just committed to swim in college. I remember this girl came to our program because we did a summer league tune-up clinic.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, we didn't have monthly billing and we didn't have where kids could choose their schedule. And we have both of those things now. Mm-hmm. So we offered these clinics where you could do it for 5-6 weeks and you could choose if you want Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So this girl's 10 years old. She shows up at the clinic, no goggles, long hair, swimming freestyle with her head out of the water. And this girl, the only reason she found our program is because we offered that. And now she's like one of the best girls in our program and going to swim in college. And like, awesome. If we're not making an effort to reach those kind of kids, we're just missing a huge opportunity. And along the lines of the flex group and quality and all. So we have two of our strongest coaches on our flex groups right now, Lydia Amerson and Kate Cabnis, and they're really good stroke teachers. They're both summer league coaches. So like, we're very intentional with that. And then this is crazy, Matt, you're not going to believe this, knowing Harvey and how much, he was a distance coach at Georgia for 35 years, right? He loves distance. We've got them doing some sets of USRPT training in that group, right? In the flex group. And the reason we did that is we're like, these kids practice, 4 nights a week and they're in the water for an hour and they do, 15 or 30 minutes of dry land. Most of them come 2 to 3 times a week. Right. So if you're in the pool twice a week for an hour, what can we actually do with you that is going to add value to you as a swimmer and make you faster? And swimming watered down versions of our other practices wasn't going to do anything. So we're trying this USRPT stuff. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like to the book or anything, but they're doing these like high intensity short sets. And we're basically saying like, we're not training y'all for 500 frees or anything like that. We're going to try to make you fast at the 50 and 100 free and hundreds of the strokes and maybe some 200s. And that way you can go help out your high school teams and summer league teams. And I have another secret goal to see how many of our flex kids doing the USRPT stuff can compete with our senior 1 kids on the sprint freestyle stuff. And I want to see how we do there.
Love it.
But we're doing it with our homeschool group too. Sorry about the phone. We're doing it with the homeschool group too. And it's work, like they're buying into it, which is really cool. They feel special because like we gave them like this cool new training or whatever. Yeah. I'm aware of all the pitfalls that comes with these sorts of things. And like, I'm cautious, and that's why we're kind of doing it halfway and not the full blown thing. And we still do a lot of other work too, but I'm excited about what the results could look like.
Yeah, definitely. So that leads into what you just said, because this is what I've been waiting to hear, the homeschool group. So there's a few clubs that has started this, and I want to know, like, How is that structured? How are you all doing it? And like, do you feel like it's working?
It's definitely working. I wanted to do it for a long time, and we didn't have the right just facilities, and we weren't going to do that at Ramsey. We couldn't get access in the middle of the day. But when we
Right.
finally got our pools in Oconee, it became a lot more doable. But I actually had a summer league parent from the team that I coached who is a homeschool mom and knows all of the other homeschool moms in the
Yeah.
community. And so she was like, "Hey, we really want this. Is this something you guys have ever thought about?" It was easy. I just said, "Yeah, we've absolutely thought about it. What would it look like for you guys?" And they're like, "Well, we do this co-op and this co-op. So if we did it at this time of day, we could come straight from school and go to it."
Right.
And so we just put it right it's at 1:10 p.m. because that's when most of them get out of their, thing and their co-op a couple days a week, and they come straight from there to the pool. And I mean, it started out as just like 6 kids and 3 families,
Right.
the first year. And then the second year we blew up to like 30 kids. And now
Oh,
we're at about 30 again. And we've actually broken it out into 3 levels now. So it kind of models the rest of our program where there's like a 10 and under version, a middle school version, and a high school version. And they all
wow.
practice at the same time. So
Right.
it's still like it's what you would envision when you show up at the house of somebody who's a homeschool person where they're got 10 kids and they're running around barefoot in the yard and all the neighbors are over and all that kind of stuff. That's what our homeschool group looks like. Like when I show up, they're on the tennis court playing barefoot kickball, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, here's the homeschool group."
That's dry
They
land.
do that, but then they go and they actually swim fast too. That's the thing. They have fun, but they're crazy, but they also train hard and swim fast. And we're starting to have some kids out of there that are ranking pretty highly in our club in terms of performance, which is really cool.
How many coaches do you staff that practice normally?
It's not the most efficient because of the 3 levels. We have 3 coaches out there,
Yeah.
but one of them is a full-time coach, and so it's kind of easy for her to slide out there. And then the other two, we just kind of bite the bullet and pay for them to be there just because it's worth it to our program. And I
Yeah.
think the long-term goal was we'd still grow this thing a little bit bigger. And I get emails all the time. I just got one, the other day of, "Hey, we're a homeschool family and we heard about this from X, Y, and Z. We haven't done any promoting, any marketing. It's all word of mouth because that's what homeschool families do."
Yeah, for sure. That was actually going to be my next question is how did you get the word out? And that's what I was going to say. I found with homeschool families, it's always like they're not looking at Facebook or Instagram. Like that's normally it's just word of mouth where it travels with that. So that's really cool because I know, I've heard a lot of teams that have like attempted it. And then it was always either the staffing issue because it's in the middle of the day. And a lot of coaches, have full-time jobs that they're not they just coach in the afternoons or whatever. So it was always a struggle for them to get coaches that are able to coach that. So, or number two, they just couldn't get it to grow to the amount that was worth it to be able to have the staff members there to pay, for the practices. So that's awesome because I actually had a lot of coaches that have asked us to talk about the homeschool, you know, how that dynamic works. So I'm definitely not there yet. It's probably coming very soon. I've been asked also, but I thought that was really cool whenever we saw it. So
They are the the embodiment of what you were talking about earlier with the balance of life, like they like having their evenings open for
yeah,
family time and dinner and things. And so by offering this to them, we have this avenue where they can still have the homeschool experience, but be club swimmers, and it's pretty exciting. I think there's a ton of potential in it. We
yeah,
have a couple kids right now that are taking it really seriously, and I think you can the nice thing about homeschool is you can kind of do whatever you want with it. I can
yeah,
make the practices as long as I need them to be, as hard as I need them to be. And if you got a couple kids that are just eating it up like we have right now and just want more, 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 you can give them more and they can get pretty fast. I don't know why you couldn't have like very, very high level swimming coming out of a homeschool group.
yeah.
And here's the other cool thing we did with homeschool. Some of them take us up on this, some of them don't. We gave them the option to one night a week drop in with their equivalent group on the club side. So if
Hmm.
and we know how fast they are, right? So we're not going to put, a kid who just started in with the top middle
Right.
school equivalent or whatever. But we tell
Right.
them, hey, if you want to swim in the evening and go see your peers that you're going to be on relays with and stuff, go drop in at this practice, and some of them do it, and it's been pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask that about the dynamic because it seems as though you have three pools, a lot of groups, a homeschool group in the afternoon. How you keep a sense that you're still all one team outside of a monthly, dinner together.
It's it's definitely hard, especially with the homeschool group, to not feel like, and the flex groups, to not kind of feel like the redheaded stepchild. So it's a challenge, and that's why we do like that drop-in practice and go swim with your peers and stuff like that. But it takes a lot of intentional work, and it's things like we have a lot of room to grow in that area, to be honest with you. But like at our red and black intra squad at the beginning of the year, we do this big dog, little dog thing where we'll pair an older swimmer up with a younger swimmer. And we had this year was really cool. We had the little kids go to Ramsey Pool, meet their big dog, make a poster with them, and then swim a practice where the big dog coached the little dog on like streamlines and flip turns and stuff. And so they got to know them in that time. Then when they show up at the swim meet, they know to look for their big dog and they find them. And then the big dog is walking them to the blocks behind their lanes. Some of those kids like really rose to the occasion where I saw some of the big dogs that just stayed the entire meet with their little dog, just walking around with them and coaching them and introducing them to people and introducing them to coaches and writing on their arm with Sharpie. It was
Yeah.
really cool to see. So stuff like that goes a really long way. And then the other thing is, because we're never going to be able to feel fully cohesive because of how spread out we are, and so we emphasize dynamics within the groups themselves. How tight can you become as your own group with your own peers right there, and that way they still have that sense of community on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. I like it. So one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about today before you get off here is you mentioned the swim school. So I was actually like, I remember when she came in and this all started and like it, and I was blown away. So I know a lot of programs out there, club programs, they get told how important swim lessons are. And a lot of the club coaches are like, I just can't even handle that. Like, I can't even think about how I would deal with a feeder program into a club team. And I think a lot of it is because, like, we look at clubs like, I'll use Dynamo as an example, right? Because they've been around forever and everyone goes there and sees how that's like this huge umbrella, like
Yeah.
swim lessons, tri club, masters, like they've got everything. And, a lot of coaches that we talk to, they're like, the thought of swim lessons is just, I can't even imagine functioning with that and what will happen. And watching this swim school like start up and where it is now and how it connects to your team, I think is something so great that coaches would love to hear, just how that started, how that functions as a feeder into ABSC. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that all works?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to find the right people. So we're lucky because we have Coach Gabby. And Matt, did you ever overlap with her? Was she on staff
Yes.
when you were
Yeah, I
here?
know exactly who she is.
Yeah,
Coach.
so Coach Gabby's awesome. She's been teaching swim lessons since she was in high school, but she was a great swimmer herself, and then she's really plugged in the swimming community. Like her brother, she has a dad named Fernando who coaches our masters a little bit with Laura, but she also has a brother named Fernando, and he was coaching out at the Natadors for a long time. And so, long story short, Gabby, after she coached with us, she went down to Florida at Gulliver School and ran the swim school there for a while. And then she went out to California with her brother, and is it Schubert that was out there at the Natadors?
Yeah, Mark was out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and ran that swim school for a while, and then worked out where California had a lot of regulations during COVID. And so it didn't end up, continuing to work out with Gabby out there, but we were able to bring her back home and start our swim school here. And I genuinely think she's the best lessons teacher that I've ever seen. I mean, she is
Yeah.
really good. And
Mhm.
both of my kids go to her for swim. My kids are 2 and 4, and they both go to her. We had my daughter in there when she was like 6 months old with Coach Gabby, and she's phenomenal. So because you've got her and she has all this experience, she just knew, she's Swim America certified and all that kind of, she just got featured in a like profile by Swim America, which was pretty cool. But she knew how to structure the program. She knew how many days per week to offer and the different levels to have and the curriculum to follow and how to hire the coaches. So really, we hired her and have provided the pool space and all that kind of stuff, but we've just kind of stepped back and giving Gabby the room to do what she does. And she's built the program from scratch. There's like 150 kids in there at any given time in the lessons program right now. And that's all her. But she fits into this new philosophy we have with ABSC where it's all about keeping it fun and keeping it light. They sing songs, they play with toys, they get lollipop on the way out the door. She's big on that. My kids actually like going to swim lessons, my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old. And my 2-year-old cries when his water gets on his face still, and he still likes going to swim lessons.
I love it.
That's Coach Gabby right there. That's the work that she does. And then as far as transitioning onto the club, they have like a pre-competitive group. There's the top group and then there's a pre-comp. So you can actually move from the top group to ABSC, or you can do the pre-competitive for a little while and then move to ABSC. And the pre-competitive is like they practice for an hour twice a week and they work on the different strokes and building endurance and kicking with the kickboard. And so when I get kids from swim school, they do really well. We got several this year that moved up onto the club, and I don't have to teach them how to streamline. I don't have to teach
Right.
them how to swim
Yeah.
breaststroke. They know this stuff, which is makes it way easier for us on the club side. They just kind of slide in and have a lot of success. I actually went back when we were starting up in late August, to start our new swim season. And I did an appearance at the swim school with that pre-competitive group where I kind of helped coach the practice and hey, I'm Coach Mike, and I stuck around and met their parents afterwards, and we'd really love to have your kids on swim team. Look
Yeah.
how good they are. They could
Right.
fit in right now. They could do meets right now. And the parents are like, what? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
the kid is good. And then, sure enough, we got a few of them and they've been doing great.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I mean, I think that that's the whole purpose of that type of programming is because you do like when you have a solid swim lessons program with, the head of it like Gabby that they know what they're doing when you get those swimmers onto the actual club team. I mean, they just take off from there because they were taught so well the basics
Yeah.
that they're not having to come onto the club team because I know, you all know when you get kids that haven't really had great swim lessons and then they come on to the club team and you have to like our group for that is called tide riders that you say okay you have to be able to swim one length of freestyle one length of backstroke right and then we can do the rest. I mean you essentially sometimes really are doing swim lessons yourself that
Right.
if they have not had that you are having to like streamlines flip turns dives like you're doing all of that stuff. Whereas instead, if you've got that core at the start that's able to teach them that stuff, you're able to go so much faster with those kids. And they learn so much better because they've got the teaching on the front end when they first start. And, I agree. Like the one time that I was down there and I got to watch Gabby do lessons, I was like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. She is just absolutely amazing. And so I think that that's really awesome to have seen like where she started and now that like you kind of get to see that flow into your team from like what's established there. And I always, tell coaches it's so important that that bottom level, your roots are so strong. So as the tree grows, that you've got such a great, strong base. Again, you retain so many more of those swimmers than you normally would. So, again, I think that that's just an awesome part that you guys have there at ABSC that I love watching grow and be amazing.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
we always like to give advice to swimmers and parents and maybe some best practices for coaches. So what are some best practices that you've learned over the last couple of years that you would add on to what we've already said, for coaches, some best practices that have been successful for you?
Yeah, I think you're catching me at a funny time right now where because we've had all this growth, I've always been able to rely on, being Coach Goober, as some of the kids call me, and like really and
The
fun
fun
and
coach,
happy.
right?
Yes. We have so many kids now that some of them don't know me and I can't or very well. There's some practices that I never get to or can't get to very often. And so just being Coach Goober alone is not enough to actually retain swimmers in our program. So what I've been doing lately I'm right in the middle of this. I'll have to let y'all know in the future how it goes. But especially with our 10 and under programming, I'm really changing course again right now, even more, where my practices are slowly becoming more and more short in terms of how much like we accomplish yardage wise in practice, but a lot more fun, a lot more challenge oriented, where let's swim a 50 free. Now let's do three things differently and let's go beat our time on this 50 free again.
Right.
And now let's add fins and beat our time again and do things like that. Like we have this space between our hot tubs, and I'll send them over there and go do underwaters between the hot tubs at the facility back and forth as, several times in a row in a short amount of time. And then I'll throw a ball out to the middle of the pool, and swimmers on each side have to swim really fast and get to the ball first in the middle of the pool. And we'll do chase races. Point being, non-traditional, I guess you would say, swim practices. And I think this is hard for those of us that were swimmers ourselves. I mean, coaching, nothing humbles me like coaching 10 and unders, because I'll show up and be like, all right, guys, we're going to go 10 50s on, 120, and we're going to get your time each time. And by the third 50, they're like, Coach, I'm bored.
Right.
I want to go home. How much time is left in practice?
How much time is left?
That is my biggest pet peeve. What time is it? Is it almost over? When I hear, is it almost over? I'm like, I failed today. My practice is trash. If kids are asking what time is it, my practice is trash. And so I'm doing everything I can with these younger groups to make it fun for them and keep them engaged so that they leave smiling and want to come back to practice the next day, because that is what's the game we're playing? Is it, can I get 10 and under to win a state title, or can I keep 40 10 and unders enjoying the sport of swimming? And that's the game I'm playing. And that's my advice to coaches, but that's also, I mean, that goes up to the senior level too. Like, if your senior practices are trash, if your senior practices are boring, if your senior kids are asking when is practice over, it's still the same thing. So you got to find ways to make any practice at any level engaging, time oriented, challenge oriented. Give them a win every day. That's another piece of advice, is let every kid leave practice where they had some sort of win. No kid should show up on the pool deck and be like, I went last and floated at the back of the lane and didn't get anything out of that. Every kid should go home being like, I had this win today where like I won this challenge, or I beat my time, or did whatever. Because I can drink enough coffee and be Coach Goober for 6 weeks during a summer league season. I can't do it year round for decades on a club side. I have to structure my program in a way that the program itself is fun, not just Coach Mike,
Yeah. I think that that's so true. And, that's right along, I mean, obviously, me and you've known me for years, that I'm the exact same way, that I'm like, we all get proud when we have those state champions, or those ones that go to juniors or get those Division I scholarships. But like in the long run, I found over the years, I'm more proud of the ones that I do get to watch from like 6 years old until they graduate and they go to college, and then they come home on break and I get a phone call or a text saying, Coach Jen, can we go have lunch? Just so they can tell me how their lives are. Yep. And, that it's about that. It's about, helping them grow as individuals and caring about who they are, and making sure that it's something that, like, when they leave and they become adults, that it's such a good memory that swimming will always be an outlet for them. And I think you're doing a great job, because as age group coaches, I see so many age group coaches that get stuck in I have this many state qualifiers. I need this many. I'm not succeeding unless I have this. And that's not true at all. Mm-hmm. It's at that age, especially of really, it's 12 and unders. They need to just love the sport and want to be there and think that it's fun. And if they don't have that, then, I say this to parents all the time, that I'm like, by the time that they can drive, forget about it. They're done. They're gone. Mm-hmm. Because when they have the choice to physically drive themselves there, and they're not being forced by parents anymore, they're done. They're not going to stay. So, I think that that's great advice, because we have spoken on that numerous times of swimming is hard enough because you're staring at a black line in a quiet atmosphere the entire time. So if we as coaches don't find a way to make that fun for them, it's really hard to keep those kids interested and keep them wanting to, swim. So I agree.
You see the swim articles of like people who are swammers now and writing letters to their older selves, and they're talking about like it was a challenge and I wanted to quit lots of times, but I'm glad I
Right.
stuck in it because it was good for me. And that's great. But I feel like my personal goal is what if kids could come through our program and never want to, never hate it, and never want to quit? Like we're not there
Yep.
yet, to be honest with you. We're not there yet. But
Yep.
that's the long-term goal, at least, is if no, I had a good, fun experience. Obviously, there was challenges. I added time for 3 months and
Yeah.
got frustrated. Like that's going to happen.
Right.
But ultimately, can we get to the place where like I enjoyed my experience the entire time? And the cool thing with ABSC is as we've been making these changes and becoming more flexible, you would think that we would lose our quality as a program, or at least that's some of the pushback that I've gotten from outside voices that, what if you're watering things down? I would counter that by saying that our senior program is as big and effective right now as it's ever been.
Right.
And if you look at our USA PowerPoint stuff, we had our highest finish in the state of Georgia ever last year, last short course season. We finished as the fifth team in the state of Georgia in terms of PowerPoints. And the teams that beat us were like, Dynamo Gold, Swim Atlanta. And I want to say the other one was maybe Augusta or Spartans Aquatic, like two other really good programs.
Right.
So like, we are as effective as we've ever been on the senior level right now. And when I first started coaching, I had 10 and under state champions, but I haven't
Mhm.
had one in a while. And our team's gotten better since I haven't had them. Like I'm having
Yep.
less success as a 10 and under coach, success, in the
Yeah.
pool at state meets and stuff, but they're staying in the program longer and they're getting fast as seniors. And half of my really good 10 and unders that were state champions or top five in state were done swimming by 14 because we
Right.
Mhm.
burned them out. And
Yep.
so I would take this path every time.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've found over the years that when you're brave enough to engage new things and see, I mean, how important it is. I say this to my families at the beginning of the season every year now is that happy kids are fast kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy kids that are enjoying themselves are fast kids. And, as long as you keep that going, you will see the return on investment. So, again, I definitely think you guys are on the path and that's awesome.
So what advice do you give to swimmers?
Oh yeah, I didn't do that, did
No, we still
Oh
have
yeah,
parents.
we're not done yet.
We're on the way down.
Okay. Um, have fun. Have fun, make it, and don't put so much pressure on yourself. Take a long-term approach and have little wins every day in practice and little wins at your swim meets. I'd say those would be the main things for swimmers. That's what I'm coaching my kids through. How
Mhm.
can we look long-term instead of short-term? That anxious girl that I had at the swim meet, Matt, that you saw on
Yes.
Sunday.
How'd she do,
Um,
by the way?
she did great. She crushed her 400 IM.
Was I right? Did she
You
say
were
it wasn't
right.
so
Yeah,
bad?
she was like, I'm really tired, but it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Here we
So
go. Good.
she was honest, and she did great on her 400 IM. She didn't DQ. She was like, oh, I'm gonna stop on the wall every time, or I'm gonna get DQ'd, and like she swam a very good, effective 400 IM. And
Yeah.
so for me, the win is like I'm telling this girl, stop being so hard on yourself. Stop comparing yourself to other swimmers in your group that you feel like you should be beating and celebrate the fact that you just did your first 400 IM for the first time. I, as your coach, am super proud of you and you get, this prize for doing it. And I'm going to shake your hand and congratulate you on doing your first 400 IM. Like, take the small wins and take the long-term approach of how good you want to be when you're in high school, not how good you want to be when you're 12.
Mhm.
How would you tell a athlete what a small win is on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for her, I would say it's actually not really a small win, a pretty big win of doing your first 400 IM, right? But
Yeah.
Right.
for on a day out basis, I'm telling them, are you making all the intervals in practice, or at least doing your absolute best to make all the intervals? Are you making it through a whole practice without getting out to go to the bathroom? For some kids, that's the win, right?
Yeah.
Like, or are you making it through a whole practice without asking me what time it is? For some kids, that's the win. But, moving up and the things we celebrate for our top dog swimmer of the month are you coachable? Do you do what the coaches ask you to do the first time? Are you a good listener? Are you a great teammate? Do people want to swim in a lane with you? And then are you performing well in practice? Are you like excelling on our challenge sets? Are you swimming near the front of the lane, one of the first three swimmers in the lane, rather than just floating in the back? or putting yourself in a lane where you are clearly swimming with people who are faster than you. So you're going at the back, but trying to keep up. I always like to say that one too, because some kids think if they're not first, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Depends who you're training with,
Yeah.
So those small wins, and I try to coach them on when they show up at practice, what's going through their head? Are you trying to win this practice? Treat Coach Mike like a boss in a video game, and he's giving you this level to try to beat. And so, can you manage your focus and your energy so that you get through this practice and beat the challenge? And by the end of it, you can look at me and say, that wasn't bad. You can give me better.
That was the most age group analogy I have ever heard. And I hope all of you age group coaches out there take that, because
It
the whole
works.
video gaming thing, that is genius, Mike.
Thank you.
There is probably so many of your kids that are like, this is Fortnite. And I.
Well, my son is always about boss fights. Everything he creates is a boss fight in the end. And he does the music and everything else. So I'm going to tell him that. He has swim practice this afternoon, so I'm going to tell him that. Coach Marin is the boss fight.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to get out in the end and say, I beat the boss today.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Make it easy for yourself. All right. What advice would you give to parents who are on this journey, this long-term journey with you?
Yeah. Couple things. Be patient and trust your coaches. I had amazing swim parents. My parents were not swimmers.
Right.
And so my coach was Coach Jim and Jean from Tidal Wave. I love them. They are amazing coaches. They're a big part of why I'm in the sport still. And when I would come out complaining about something or in a bad mood or whatever, my mom would be like, well, what did Coach Jim tell you? What did Coach Jim tell you? And that was huge for my development, I think. So parents, trust your coaches. Then, of course, when you inevitably have concerns, you will, when you're sitting in the stands, parents, and you're like, looks like my kid has way worse turns than the kid from Dynamo or whatever. Maybe ABSC is not doing enough turn work. Maybe I should get mad at the coaches for not doing enough turn work. I'm not saying your concern isn't valid, but when you have those concerns, bring it to us, please.
Yes.
Bring it to us.
I mean, not everybody around you at the same
and
time.
Not everybody around you in the stands. Yep. Please bring it directly to us. And the last thing I would say is get involved. Like typically our parents who have the best experience are the ones who are, it's like anything in life. The more you put in, the more you get out. I understand that y'all are paying money for your kids to be here. I get that. And so it could be easy to have the mindset of I'm just going to drop off and disengage because I'm paying the coaches and that should cover everything. And I think that's fair, but in terms of how good of an experience are you going to have if you get yourself invested more in the program, you and your kids are going to have a much better experience. When they look up and see you as an official on the pool deck at their race, you are demonstrating for them that you care about what they're doing and you're involved in the process. So, and show up to the events, show up to the team dinners, show up to the award ceremonies, make an effort, bring pizza on the pizza day, do things like that where you are investing more than just your money, because swimming is an interesting investment, but what my opinion is, what we really get out of this is the health. And if it's done right, the mental health and the relationships and the community, that's what this is all about in the first place. That's why I'm a coach. I want all the kids on my team to have a place where they can show up and belong and have purpose and connect with their community and connect with others and be healthy together. And so parents, the more active role you take in that, it's true that only some kids will get a scholarship. I understand that. And if that's the only thing that matters to you, you might end up being disappointed. But if you can be invested through the whole way, you're going to have a much better experience.
Yeah, and this is why we invited you on the podcast.
Yes.
Because advice like this, and I've really enjoyed everything that you've said. It's amazing as a former ABSC coach to see the metamorphosis into what you are now, and you're really a huge part of that. Yeah. Don't ever cut yourself short. Like we've been looking forward to having this interview for months. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming in. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great podcast.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.
All right. See ya.
Yeah.
Whatever platform you're listening to, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. And if you loved us, leave a review.
Also, if you're interested in getting more information from this episode, click the link in the description and we'll send you notes from this episode. Finally, do you have a topic to suggest or want to share your thoughts? Email us at swimedinfo@gmail.com. swimedinfo@gmail.com.
Join us next time for a thoughtful discussion about swimming and how coaches, athletes, and parents can improve their performances. Thanks for listening to Swimmed, education for coaches, athletes, and parents.